Alright, hope you're having yourself a beautiful Thursday evening. Hello and welcome to Tipping Point. My name is Nick Mudimba. Lots of topics to touch base on tonight, and as you know very well, the situation isn't getting any better. Each day the numbers actually keep on growing, but we hope maybe in a few weeks we'll start flattening that curve so that things can get better. Also, this period has actually showed us lots of social kind of graphs, because now we are finding a situation where domestic violence and sexual offenses are on the rise. And for the first time in many homesteads and many occasions, now the husband and wife are together for a longer time than expected. So the true colors are actually coming out here. Now, some men have actually decided to take action into their hands, because sometimes the issue of scorecards and exchange of words in the house, sometimes many men cannot take it. I'm not alone in the studio, of course. I'm with Shibanzi Mochonda. Of course, that's the doctor. Shibanzi Mochonda is a doctor, and he's an acting SecGen, KMPDU, and of course, George Osino, advocate of the High Court. We'll also be touching base on the issues about burials, because now so many people came out in protest on how the CI situation went down. But this is just among the topics we're going to touch base on. Jojo Sino, good to see you today, my brother.
Thank you very much.
Bwana Daktari Shibazi, good to see you today.
Much. Thank you.
All right, now we want to start with something not so many of you, especially the men, are really acquainted with. But again, before we go on, you can be part of this conversation. You can SMS us on 22999, and on Twitter at TippingPoint KE, use the hashtag. I'll be sampling some of the views as we proceed. But starting with you, Bwana Osino, advocate of the High Court, it's clear we are living in very difficult times. And when you talk about domestic violence on the rise in this country, we are finding a situation where it's unfortunate, because now it still happens, even despite when we are maybe in a good time. But look, for the first time, a couple are knowing each other. It's something that maybe we didn't expect. But look, men are really taking action into their own hands.
It's quite unfortunate. Of course, violence of any nature should be condemned. And in this case now, because of the COVID-19 situation, couples have been forced to stay together. People are not moving. Things are not moving. So guys are spending more time at home together. And you realize that as a result, there can be that culture of boredom, of getting used to each other too much. So some men are taking matters on their own hands. It's not good. I'm glad to say that right now the various organizations have taken up that matter. One of those organizations is FIDA. They've announced that if any couple or any gender, someone who is undergoing violence, will report to them directly to be taken action upon. And even the prosecution department they have been told to take heed and start prosecuting these cases. So it's quite unfortunate, but let's hope things will change for the better.
Absolutely. Daktari, good to see you today, and I believe you're married, and let's talk about these issues, because now in a social setup, we're finding a situation where now two people who haven't been used to each other in the same house being together for a very long time. And so many people, especially psychologists, are saying that it's something that they need to rejuvenate and go back to the drawing board and see what changes they can make. But they can make actually in the houses. But what are these changes? Because I feel like it's just a matter of coexisting well.
Well, I think the first thing that we need to appreciate is the COVID-19 pandemic situation. And remember, we are seeing mitigation measures that have been put in place from quarantine for those who are in quarantine, because you're also having a number of cases coming out of quarantine in terms of happenings in the quarantine areas. At home, staying at home means then you're basically confined. And remember, the situation is affecting even the economics of the country. So even at a family level, if you are to go to work, and probably if you had a business that you're running, of course then you become anxious and frustrated, because then you're not able to do your normal duties that you're supposed to do. Absolutely. So it's not about couples not knowing one another. It's not about couples staying together for long, but rather it's the mental health aspect of it. There's a lot of anxiety and fear, and so that means that in the homes, then couples have to be tolerant. I think that's one thing they need to do, is be tolerant, even in how you talk to your partner, because you can imagine if one of the partners is thinking, my business is not doing well right now, there are children to be fed there, and then you start an argument and you're not you be combative, then for every action there's a reaction, which is very unfortunate. And I'm not saying that all I'm saying is tolerance. Violence is not the way out. I think if you feel there's too much pressure in the house, you can just take a walk in the estate, and just cool off, you know, as opposed to venting your frustration on your partner.
Okay, so George, it's crazy because now even the financial setup has changed. And you know, so many people, especially the opposite sex, the women, when things are kind of abnormal, they tend also to react in some way. What do you think about this? Is there a lack of communication? Because I think from men also, there must be communication here.
Exactly. I can say with this situation, it has brought with it a lot of frustrations. Of course, it calls upon people to understand each other. And this not only applies to couples, it calls upon employers to understand the employees, it calls upon the government various facets of this society has to understand that we are facing a very these are difficult times. It will not be business as usual. So it calls upon everyone to understand each other, especially with regard to couples. Definitely, you have to get a sense of things will not be as they were. The economic situation probably has changed, but it's for a short period of time, and we are hopeful that things will be contained, and at some point we will get back to normal. So it calls upon people to understand, communicate, and all
right, so in a few you'll be listening to Mercy Mwangange, the CAS Health. She'll be talking more about now what gender-based violence is concerned, because now with this situation it's unfortunate, but I can tell you, you can still send your feedback on 22999, and I'll be sampling some of our views. And already most of you are not really happy with what's going on in our homesteads and our houses. Things are thick right now. Of course, I'll just sample some of them from a few here from Twitter, because many of you feel like it's a period as men should actually come out and be free and talk about the financial status. Most of us men, we are flexing muscles and we have nothing, and we're making the ladies believe there's something. So communication is very key. But before we listen to the CAS, now via a phone link we're joined by Dr. Bertha Kaimenyi, who is a life coach and of course a lecturer at Daystar University. And Dr. Bertha Kaimenyi, good to have you today here on Tipping Point. The whole scenario here, we're talking about gender-based violence. Of course, you'll also touch base on education. But let's start with the coexisting situation at home. Right now, it's on the rise. Sexual offenses, gender-based violence. Now, what do you think is going on? And maybe quick one, you can give us solutions out of this.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nick.
You're welcome.
Nick, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Dr.
Yes, thank you very much for having me. I think first and foremost, we must appreciate this COVID-19, that is a global problem, that is affecting the whole world, it's affecting government, it's affecting economic, families. And so when we come to the family level, and the gender-based violence, the way I see it is the solutions for gender-based violence have their roots and structural causes. So this is bringing up the issues that we've never been able to deal with.
Absolutely.
Because women have always been taken as a second-class citizens. Women are supposed to be seen, not to be heard. And so those things that we have never been able to deal with are now coming up. And so for me, it's dealing with the roots to prevent it from happening in the first place.
Absolutely.
And that is setting the early life educational goals, working with the young girls and boys about promoting and respecting relationships. So that we respect women, and of course women respect men.
Absolutely.
So that if we are not with that, then we will not be where we are now.
Okay.
But since we are here now and we have it where we are, then we should have voices against violence.
Absolutely. So,
and I think one of us, I think the advocate has said about FINDA, that is very important. Legislation to protect women from violence.
Yes.
That's very important. And of course, knowing that the crisis is very temporary, both the men and women should understand where they are and know that they are doing it for a very short time, and then we move on.
Yeah, so Dr. Solutions, what do you think? You've actually told us about the route. There must be a route. And now talk to the men, because we are the perpetrators here. And talk to the men out here, because most of them are said to be young, inexperienced, early marriages, and actually taking action into their own hands.
Yes, men and women, God created as equal.
Okay.
And so men should respect women in the sense that this is my partner. And I should not draw my anxiety and my, because where we are now, people are in fear, they are anxious, they don't know what's going to happen next.
Yes.
So that should not be drawn to your partner. And like the teller said, we should find ways to deal with it.
It's true that. Now,
in a respectful way.
Yeah, that's noted.
So that's why we need the voices against this.
Okay, so for the men here, I think Osino has a question for you. I don't know what you can ask Dr. because as a man, do you feel sometimes maybe the self-esteem is crushed because so many men are feeling that we are the breadwinners, we are dominant in the house, but once the verbal poisonous jabs come towards you, many feel like it's kind of destabilizing your emotions and you feel like your self-esteem has been crushed.
But these men should know it's not just happening to that particular man in that house.
Okay.
It's happening to all the men in the community. In fact, to all men in the world, too. You're not the only one. And like the teller told us, take a walk.
Yeah.
Don't beat your wife.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you so much. As a lecturer at Daystar University, I understand right now all the students at home. Maybe a quick one before I let you go. How are you coping right now?
Yes, like I said, we are trying to appreciate this is a global problem.
Yes.
And none of us was prepared for this.
Yes.
But we thank God for technology that now we can do e-learning.
Yes.
And so we also need to understand that e-learning is not about using levels.
Yes.
It's about the content. And this is a time also to realize teaching is not just necessarily when a lecturer and the students are talking. And because students are so much time at home, it's time to pause. It's time to reflect. Because education is not just when you are talking.
Okay.
In fact, great innovations and most things in the world were created when people were quiet.
Absolutely.
For example, when Isaac Newton discovered the motion and the law of gravity.
Okay. So
brains have been closed for 2 years because of an epidemic.
All right. So finally, Dr. Do you think now this will be a wake-up call? That talks about distance learning being taken a notch higher, because now this will actually be a learning curve for many learning institutions. What do you think? Because I'm lucky you taught me years back. I wasn't able to attend any of your e-learning classes. You are there in class physically. I don't know the attendance and also the fact that now the students have to respond. How do you take it and the learning curve with the fact that now you have to go the long distance way?
I think what I can say at this point, this is a crisis that we are not all prepared for.
Okay.
Majority of our students are online.
Okay.
But I can tell you a few of them are not able to access our e-learning classes.
Wow.
Because of where they live.
Absolutely, yeah.
Some of them have to go to a cyber, which is expensive.
Yes.
And so as a university also, we are on discussion on that.
Okay, thank you very much.
So I cannot say much about those who are not able to access because we are discussing about it. And definitely we shall come up with solutions where we can accommodate everybody.
Absolutely.
Because we can use emails and many other things. But at this point, it's something that we are working on our feet because it's not something that we are all prepared for.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Batha Kaimenyi, right there for your sentiments. And of course, I wish you all the best. I hope the cuts you're giving them, they're not actually Googling, because now that means they have the liberty to do anything with the exams, anything. What are you doing today about it? Because it's crazy. You're submitting the cuts, but you're coming, everyone is getting an A.
But there are many ways to do the class. We can give them projects.
Okay.
We've had where they can do on their own.
Okay.
Like I think education is just transferring knowledge.
Yes.
It is helping these students to transform the intellectual and the emotional levels. And this is an opportunity for them to do that as we give them projects that will help them to be innovative and creative.
All right. Thank you very much. I know your cuts were not easy. I think they're they're really celebrating that.
What you want, Nick.
Thank you very much.
Because of my difficult cuts.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yeah, thank you so much for your sentiments. And of course, thank you very much, Dr. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Karibu sana. All right, so it's clear we wouldn't have this conversation about gender-based violence without involving a senior life coach, especially a woman, into this conversation. And you told us about taking a walk, but still, let's just listen in to what CS Masi Mongangi had to say about the whole scenario, because the numbers are actually on the rise.
That this violence is perpetrated by close relatives and guardians. And therefore, fellow Kenyans, even as we address this between the various government departments, we are calling on Kenyans to focus on fighting the virus and to handle the disputes within the laid down civil structures and devoid of any violence. The numbers we have right now, at least from the National Justice Council, is that we have 3 times more cases. They will be sharing with us a disaggregation based on age, based on sex, and we'll be able to inform you Kenyans once we get that data.
Well, a turning point, close relatives and those people close to you actually conducting things. Very unfortunate. You know, we've been talking about the husbands especially, but now looking at the fathers, the uncles, brothers doing this, it's also crazy. It's also taking a toll on relatives. You know, they say blood is thicker than water, but this time around it's getting thick. What can you say about that, Terry?
Well, what I'd say is this, at some point you have to appreciate, again, and I say this, the COVID-19 pandemic situation we're in, the fact that the situation has brought a lot of anxiety, frustrations due to financial situations.
Yes.
And so that doesn't matter. You see, if you're frustrated,
Yes.
then you need to find a way of dealing with that.
So
it doesn't matter, because what happens is you are bound, you're more likely to project that onto the nearest person close to you.
yes.
So yes, it might be a very close relative and you're a guardian, but how they come at you in terms of even discussions or anything in the family level, you will project that if you're not careful.
Yes.
So that's why I insisted that it's upon us to practice restraint and find ways of dealing with, you know, you don't necessarily have to respond via an action, a violent action.
Yes.
Silence is equally good. You can keep silence, or you can just take a walk out, you know,
Yeah.
just outside the house for some few minutes
Yes.
and cool off if you feel that you're getting too much pressure and you're getting angry. Because the most important thing is to recognize that my action here will have an impact. And you see there's anger management that comes into play. So I think those are some of the things that we'll have to consider even post this, that anger management, how do we handle our own anger and frustration, and how do we prevent ourselves from projecting it to and leading to violence. So violence should not be a reason at all in this scenario.
Absolutely. All right, we're now taking a short break right here on Tipping Point. When you come back now, Julio Sinos here, advocate of the High Court, will be talking about the issue of burial. And you remember very well in Siaya, something bizarre happened. A COVID-19 victim, actually, who died, was buried during the night. There was no any type of ceremony. Just came through the body in a hole over there, and this actually brought in so many reactions. But you keep on sending your SMSs on 22999. On Twitter, you can actually use the hashtag TippingPointKE. Let me just sample some of your views. And KOT Lol says that it's so shameful that some relatives are taking action into their own hands. Beating their sisters, some have no shame beating even their parents, and this should actually be looked into. Now, Tupumue says the law hasn't been suspended. So many people think now they have the liberty to do whatever they want. The law will actually catch up with them. And someone else, Tumuti George, saying that so many stressful moments right now. Many people are also adding weight. They don't have places to actually escape. I don't think if weight is a reason to actually beat someone, but still, keep on sending your SMSs. And of course, on Twitter, I'll promise to sample some of them. A break it is. We'll be back in a few. Right, welcome back to Tipping Point. As I told you before we took a break, the discussion right now, you want to dwell on the Siaya burial, the bizarre burial it was, and so many politicians, so many even religious leaders came out to say even the dead need to be accorded their deserved respect. And this one now, we found a situation where now this is going to court, and that's where, George, you come in, because now not so many people understood what went on here. Yes, we'll have the Medic version, but again, do you think it was done in a hurry without consulting maybe the family?
Definitely. Actually, for the recent few days, that news has many people are shocked as to the circumstances surrounding the burial of the person in Siaya. And I think there was a faction that was wondering, but he's a dead person. Why should a dead person be accorded burial rights and everything? At this point, I'll just point to a few provisions of the law, just to educate Kenyans on what a burial entails. Now, if you look at our constitution, we have Article 11. Article 11 of the constitution allows people to practice their culture. Similarly, if you look at Article 19 of the constitution, Article 19 indicates that every human being, whether dead or alive, has a right to be treated with dignity. Similarly, if you look at Article 27 of the Constitution, Article 27 of the Constitution provides that there shouldn't be discrimination in the way government deals with its people. We also have Article 44 of the Constitution, which also indicates that everyone has a right to be treated with every culture. Every human being has a right to practice the culture of his choice.
Yes.
And this is reflected even in the international practices. And the World Health Organization said, even in times of emergency, human rights have not been suspended. Still, it should be maintained. I saw our health CS indicating that we are at an emergency, and so it will not be business as usual. That is true, but to some extent,
Yes.
there are certain provisions that cannot be derogated. The right to dignity, the right to practice culture of one's choice, that should be accorded. There should be a balance that should be struck. And I think, and the media, you've educated Kenyans well. Right now, the family has gone to court.
Okay.
They've gone to court. They're challenging. They want the body to be exhumed, because you have to get a court order for a body to be exhumed. They want the body to be exhumed. They want a burial to be conducted afresh with regard to culture.
Yeah, maybe let's get the pictures, Brenda. Maybe you can roll the pictures, the way she was actually the body was buried. And you just proceed.
They are seeking orders for a declaration that the government violated the right in the manner in which to conduct the burial.
Yeah.
They want orders for the body to be exhumed, so that a fresh burial can be conducted. And even in court, the lawyers for the family have indicated that they're very willing to observe the social distancing.
Yes.
They're very willing to conduct the burial in accordance with the rights that are required.
Yes.
So that case is in court. It was lodged some few days ago.
Okay.
It was filed under an emergency certificate of urgency. Orders came out yesterday. I think yesterday or the day before.
Yes.
According to court, that matter will be heard tomorrow. Tomorrow is 17th April.
Yes.
And the petition will be heard, so that we'll see what the court says. But my opinion is this. There was question as to, this is not the first victim to be buried.
Yes.
Previously, there was a pilot who was buried. He was accorded the dignity. The family was there. The body was taken from Lee. So there are questions as to why this family was treated this way.
Yes.
And that takes us to Article 27 of the Constitution. Every human being, every member of the society should be treated equally. That's why you see this an appraisal. But I think it will be well. I suppose the court's going to give an order that the body be exhumed.
Okay.
And fresh burial be, but that's left to the courts. We shall wait and see.
Shall wait and see. Now, Dr. I'm very sure the people who conducted this practice, most of them are medics. looking at the PPEs they had, I'm very sure a local man can't just be taken through how to wear PPEs and then conduct the burial. Was this done in maybe kind of in a haste? And it looks like they didn't want to take matters kind of... these guys are in a hurry to do things and then we forget about it. But look at the family.
Yeah, so first and foremost, let's not assume that whoever is donned the PPE was a medic. Let me make it
I knew that was coming.
Let me make it clear. Because there is a public health act in terms of disposal of bodies in such situations.
Yes.
So yes, there are those who are going to be tasked with disposing the body. So, but the reality is, what was done was wrong. That has to be said.
Okay.
And I'd say that the WHO on 24th of March 2020 this year, that is 3 weeks ago, issued an infection prevention and control management and disposal of bodies in the context of COVID-19. And in that guideline, it's quite clear, and it says that yes, this is a pandemic, it's a new disease. We know transmission is aerosol.
Yes.
But so far, there is no evidence that there is transmission through a dead body.
Okay.
And what it goes ahead to say is that the part to take extreme care is when you're conducting an autopsy and you're handling the lungs, because improper handling of the lungs, because the disease has been shown to affect the lungs. Improper handling of the lungs is likely to cause infection. But otherwise, dead bodies should be handled in a respectful manner. And of course, with donning of personal protective equipment.
Absolutely.
Because remember also, we are not sure. There's no evidence, but we are also not sure. So you have to take extreme care. And it goes ahead to give 3 guidelines, of which 2 would apply in this scenario. That one, hasty disposal of a body because of COVID-19 should be avoided at whatever cost. The second thing is that religious, cultural practices and family rights should be respected, and that is how the burial should be conducted.
Absolutely.
And I also go ahead and say countries that have had very high mortalities, as high as 800, 700, 1,000, Italy, Spain. I mean, the photos and the videos that we have received is that they've put the people in coffins and planned them. In fact, some even have flowers. And that they're going to be buried in a procedural manner. In fact, in Italy, the army had to come in and now transport the bodies for disposal. What they did not allow was the family members to come at that area of disposal. But at least you know that your person has died and they're being accorded a respectful burial. That is the principle. So what happened was wrong. Those officers should be apprehended and action should be taken against them. And the family has a right to contest. Yes.
All right. That's actually very clear. It was very wrong, because now we're not dealing with a very abnormal circumstance, because even the dead deserve the respect. But look, even the CS, Mutai Kagwe, had something to say about it, because now so many people felt it wasn't actually fair to the family. Let's take a listen.
I want to inform the country that moving forward, there will be challenges. I want to say, in an honest term as I can, and be brutally honest, that our cultural practices on how we dispose the bodies of our loved ones may not be practical in an extreme situation. I therefore want our people to be mentally prepared and to accept that COVID-19 victim bodies shall be disposed in a manner that protects the living from infections and in accordance with the Ministry of Health burial protocols.
There's a very big risk of people leaning towards culture and forgetting that what has been done is in the overall interest of the immediate family, the extended family, and the family at large. So I would like our people to bear that in mind as you condemn or have anything to say.
All right, that's done and dusted. It wasn't fair. But let's now move on. You know, our Kenyan MPs, you know very well, you try to touch their salaries and you'll actually see fire. But COVID-19 has actually made them lose 2.5 billion in allowances and travel kitties. The money has been now converted in the fight, actually towards the fight against COVID-19. And most of them, yes, is a time where they have no choice, because you know very well in this country, touching an MP salary, even 100,000, even 20,000, you'll actually be in hot soup. George, this is now interesting because now 2.5 billion in the allowances and travel kitties slashed now to fight the COVID-19. Yes, they're back in the house, but even the arrangement in the house, very wise. Some are actually conducting the sessions outside, observing the 1.5 social distancing. What do you think about this move?
No, okay, these are extraordinary times, and our leaders should, and everyone,
Yes,
should be ready to take sacrifices. Now, I was very happy when the president announced that he is willing, and the deputy, he and his deputy will take an 80% cut.
yes,
Now, what you're trying to do is, however little or however big it will be, it goes towards helping in this situation.
Yes.
The executive, members of the executive, the cabinet, the ministers, the PSS, they have taken cuts.
yes,
The judiciary, they have taken cuts.
yes.
If you look at the even the speaker, the two speakers of the house, they have
they have
taken cuts.
Sure.
Now, the MPs are trying to justify by saying that one, they have a lot of they have loans, they have taken loans and mortgages, and they have a lot to pay.
Okay.
But that similarly applies to members of the judiciary, members of the cabinet, and everything.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Now, another excuse I've heard the MPs saying is that them they help their constituents directly, so that instead of contributing this money to the kitty, them they're on the ground, they would want to use their money.
Yes.
But I find that excuse a bit lame.
Okay.
That's just one of the reasons to try and give excuses. But it's not only on the issue of salary cuts. There's a huge indictment on our legislature, the way they have handled these situations. If you look at other countries, MPs have been at the forefront in taking measures,
Yes.
giving out stimulus packages, giving out solutions towards tackling this COVID-19 situation.
Yes.
But when you come back to Kenya, it's only until recently, 2 weeks ago, 31st March to be precise, that we began seeing measures, and our speakers began calling upon the houses to meet. Otherwise,
Okay.
this situation
Yeah.
had proceeded for some time, and nothing much had happened.
Okay, Doc, look at how our member of parliament is actually wearing his gloves. Not gloves, actually, mask. Is it the right way? Maybe you can tell us, because now we're seeing the footage because of KBCS, but look at how he's wearing it. Okay, Jeanette is doing very well, but the previous gentleman, education on how these things are done also.
I think what you need to recognize is that the masks have supposed to cover the nose and the mouth.
Okay.
So one is to make sure that it has covered all the way up on the nasal bridge, up here to the level of the end of your face
Okay.
and your mouth.
Okay.
So there are two types. There's one that you just put on,
Okay.
the slit here, and there's one that you tie.
Ah, so he's okay.
So he's fine. It's just that he's tied one here and the other one up here, but it has covered what is supposed to be covered.
All
And
right.
that happens because that is Dr. Pukose. He is a doctor.
he's
So
the
it happens
doctor.
actually in theater. That
In
there are
theater.
those who
Oh,
prefer
now makes sense.
tying one strip here and
Okay.
one strip lower.
Okay, interesting. All right, let's just listen into some of the laws they had to pass, because now, during these tough times, they had to come up with very stringent measures to mitigate all the issues we're going through as a country. Listen in.
This is an avenue which, if we do not check as Parliament, Mr. Speaker, we could be handing the backhand to the executive to be able to apportion money to counties that they feel, for one reason or the other, are more deserving than others. All purposes of distribution and sharing of national raised revenue is a preserve of Parliament, Mr. Speaker. This exercise or the discretionary power that was handed on conditional grant continues to be abused. And it is my hope, and we put in this as part of our report, Mr. Speaker, that perhaps this should be the last time where we are allowing the Treasury to give us proposals for conditional grants without giving a formula as to how they arrive at the decision on which amount goes to which county and for what particular reason, Mr. Speaker.
Governments, including my county, Kisii government, utilizing some of these resources that are under the conditional grants for health, for roads, for urban support program, for afforestation, and for other areas where we have one headquarter. And I would expect that, for instance, in Kisii County, I would expect that by now, the Kisii town should have been fully completed in various other infrastructure development. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And we keep on sinking money in and out. And I think it's high time that we started looking at the devolution, not only at the county headquarters alone, but
All right, now let's talk about mass testing, because the idea was to start with the frontline workers who are medics, and then later on it will trickle down to the public. Now, this is something that we'll be discussing after a short break, but we're taking it. But when we come back now, you know, the issue of mass testing is something that not so many people understand the procedure. Doc Chibanzo will be taking us through that, but the procedure is not very friendly. And when you talk about mass testing, you'll actually find some kidogo backlash from the public, because not so many people will be willing to be tested. But you're taking a short break. Keep on sending your comments on 22999. I'll sample some of them as we continue the show. We'll be back, but the backing is actually on the issue of maybe Kenyans understanding that we have a problem in this country. Right, welcome back to Tipping Point. We now want to touch base with matters of mass testing. Yes, the medics have been given the priority, but the public, the problem is the backlash. Will everyone accept to be tested? Now, this one goes to Daktari, and we're also having a very interesting question here. Why are Africans not dying in masses? Daktari will also be giving us that answer. And mass testing, the frontline workers have been given the priority, but again, Kenyans out here are waiting. Is this a situation whereby all Kenyans will have to be tested, or majority of the Kenyans will have to go through it? And if yes, maybe what's the procedure and what will be happening here?
So we first start by, do we have the adequate number of testing kits to test the entire country?
Yeah.
I don't think that's possible.
Absolutely.
Because our country is almost at 50 million population. So the mass testing that is going to be done is going to be targeted.
Yes.
By targeted, we mean already know the hotspot areas, and we also know the high-risk population. So one of the high-risk population is the healthcare workers, and it's good that it was launched the other day by the Ministry of Health.
Yes.
So that healthcare workers also are tested, because and remember, a good proportion of the cases normally are mild, and up to 90% are normally asymptomatic. So if the healthcare workers are not given a priority, the issue that is likely to happen is that if someone contracts the disease and has a mild or asymptomatic, and they are interacting with their fellow health workers, they could infect them, and that will now reduce the workforce that is supposed to handle the disease. For the priority areas, I think we know already Nairobi is an epicenter in Kenya. We know Mombasa is the second one. The coastal region, Kwale, Kilifi, now we have Western Kenya. Mandera is also quite coming up as one of those hotspot areas. So what the mass testing that's going to be done is going to be targeted in these specific areas that are hotspot and have the highest number of cases, and there's a high degree of community spread. As for Kenyans, I don't think you have a choice. This is for your own safety. So what you need to accept is, if you're asked and you identify that you need to be tested, then it's just common sense that you comply.
Yeah, you know, it's the process. Instead of the swabs, in your nose. Yeah, you know, some people, we interviewed some of them, and they said it's very uncomfortable. But yes, you know, for the purpose of results, you have to go through it. But do you think some Kenyans will accept?
Let me start by saying this. Even on a normal sickness, when you go to the hospital, there are those who don't like needle pricks.
Yes.
But we need to take samples through needle pricks to get your...
Yeah.
And it's because you want to get well.
Yeah.
So it is uncomfortable. That is not something that is not something to be hidden. It is uncomfortable, but look at the benefit of it. It's for your own health. If you have a family, it's good that you protect your family. And apart from the mitigation measures that have been put in place, testing is one of those measures that, I mean, if the test comes back negative, then you're good and you can continue living with your family quite well around your community really well. But if it comes positive, then it's only important that you get isolated from the rest of the community up until you're fit and healthy again to come back to the community.
Absolutely.
So that's the underlying principle.
All right. So Doc is saying you have no other ways, because when it comes to you actually have to be tested, and the government is serious about this. Let's just listen in more on the issue of mass testing.
Yesterday we tested close to 100 healthcare workers, and we thank God that most of them, and all of them, the ones we tested yesterday, were safe. And we are doing targeted testing. We started with the front liners, the people who are in the front. We are also going to accident and emergency, ICU, renal, wards that are involved like that. At the end of it all, we'll have finished with all the health workers, and again, we'll restart again. We keep restarting again.
All right. Another question coming in from many of you. Africans are not dying in masses. And this is something that indeed, Doc, you'll have to answer, because Kenyans are concerned. Why are we not dying in masses? We shouldn't die, guys. It's not something that we have to count as our portion, but it's a concern. People want to know. In Italy, the deaths are so high. In the US, the same thing. In the UK, the same thing. What do you have to say about this?
First and foremost, if someone is wondering why we are not dying, I mean, that's really unfortunate.
Absolutely.
Because I don't think we want to see people die because of COVID-19.
Yeah.
So that would be the first point. But if you look at the progression of the number of cases, and if you do a percentage of mortality rate for the disease across the globe, you realize that we are looking at around 5 to 6% of the total number of cases. So a good instance is if you look at the US, where you're reporting of almost over 20,000 deaths.
Yes.
The cases are in the hundreds and thousands.
Absolutely.
Come back here, Italy the same. So there's a percentage that is the mortality rate of the number of cases. Come back home, you're talking of 9 deaths. And you're talking of slightly over 200, 225 as of yesterday, right? Number of cases. If you do a percentage of that, and I just calculated that, it's around 4%.
Yes.
So the most important thing is to make sure that we do not get an increase in the number of cases, because with every increase of number of cases, the increase in number, the percentage is constant. You're looking at 5%. So what we should be focused on as Africans in general is mitigation measures to ensure that we get to flatten our curves really fast, because that will also reduce the number of mortalities that we get in the long run. So that is the most important thing.
All right. So for the people who are asking, some of you are asking about the number of deaths, it's unfortunate, but you've been answered very well. But as you're winding up at Tipping Point, there's a group of people, I can say, wale watu during this time wanaitisha bash. You're having parties in your estates, you're having parties in your houses. Trust me, it's been very difficult for some people out here who've been calling on their friends, on their relatives, on drinking sprees. But again, the social responsibility, the COVID-19 measures violators, it's clear. Gazette came in, and when you found even without a mask, I must say that even an MP was found drinking. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, I think I'll start by commenting. I'll start by saying, you see, and I'll give a legal perspective a bit. You know, your right end where someone else's rights begin.
Yes.
To the extent that the government is taking all these measures, it's simply because this disease not only affects you, but it has the potential of going to the next person.
Yes.
Had it been that this is just another disease, I don't know, I think doctors would call it communicable disease. Communicable disease are those diseases that I think they spread.
Yes. Airborne
or
yeah,
something.
absolutely,
Yes.
yeah.
So the nature of this disease is that it not only affects you, it has the potential of going to the next person. So the government has to bring in measures to protect everyone, so that people will just have to cope with the situation right now.
Yeah.
If you have been coping, if you have been partying 20 years of your life, it doesn't. Some few months of not partying will not affect you much.
You can imagine just few hours of partying. Look at your screens, and you can see that the guy is really going through a hard time.
I believe on that one, Waswahili wanasema ni msiba wa kujitakia. Sometimes you just have to.
Kuna Mswahili hapa. Mwachona Chibanzi ni Mswahili. Lakini there's something wrong with our young people. But again, look, our leaders who should be, Waswahili wanasema kioo cha jamii. Now show us as an example, an MP going to lock himself with other. What's happened to this country?
Well, I must say that one is to make sure that we understand the gravity of the situation, and we also understand what prevention in this case means. Unlike other diseases, prevention is very key in this. Yes. Of course, all other diseases normally have the prevention aspect being a very strong pillar of it. But COVID-19 specifically, and given the global crisis it has caused, then it's only responsible that we all take measures in terms of ensuring that we do not take certain actions.
Yes.
Like what you're seeing where you have drinking sprees.
Yes.
And as I said earlier, there's also a lot of frustration and anxiety and fear. And so different ways of dealing with it. And there are those who would take to the bottle, you know. And unfortunately, taking the bottle for them would not be as an individual. They'd want someone there so that they feel like they are somehow dealing with their frustrations and dealing with the situation. But that then also puts them at risk of contracting the disease.
It's true that.
Yeah.
It's true that.
So for the leadership, I think it's just to appeal to our political leaders, and a good number of them have been off your usual events. I mean, a good number of them have been silent.
I can imagine.
They've been showing us their photos on social media in their houses in isolation.
For the first time.
So it's just a percentage, and that is expected in a community of so many people that you'll always have those who feel like they can violate the law.
The vocal ones, leaders of minority and majorities in both houses. I don't know what's happening to them, the vocal ones. You know, sometimes politics, you have to speak a lot. And it's a difficult time. You can't go for treatment anywhere. You can actually exercise your, maybe, Kenyans like to say, maybe hulabalus that do not actually impact on Kenyans. But it's crazy. This thing has leveled everyone.
It has leveled everyone. And you see, at the time when there were news, I don't know how verifiable these news were, that there was a certain number of MPs had contracted this disease.
Yes.
It's a bit unfortunate anyway that some Kenyans got that opportunity to say that now this is an equalizer. You cannot run away from this country. You cannot seek, and some are going to as far as saying that you seek treatment in your county, from the county where you belong. Anyway, it's just trying to send a message that this thing is equal, so that even post COVID-19, please let us. And I've really appreciated now what health means. It's very important that Kenyans look at their health infrastructure, enhance their capacity, so that we can improve our health sector. It's a lesson for all of us.
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right. So many of you are talking about taking things for granted. You can imagine the things we took for granted right now are things we really yearn to have. The freedom, the air you're breathing. We're lucky in Kenya, you only have a curfew. And the curfew means at the time you're going home, when you wake up in the morning, you continue with your endeavors. But look at South Africa, look at Uganda, look at other countries like Nigeria. You can imagine the rate of criminal offenses going in that country, because now even in a village like Ikeja, someone called Ikeja, you can't just leave your shop even with the goods inside. When you close, you have to go with the goods at home, because you might come back tomorrow in the morning and find the shop vandalized and everything is actually gone. So let's count ourselves lucky here in the country, because no lockdown yet. Some people wanted it, but it's not as easy as maybe it might be. But that's where we come actually to the end of Tipping Point today. Thank you so much, Dr. Chibanzi Mochona, for coming today. Wakili Yosino, thank you so much for your time. And I must just insist that as Kenyans, please, let's just try and be disciplined. This thing will end. Mitigation wars is actually something that indeed is going on, but again, let's just try and be ourselves. Stay at home. For those working, I understand even some people have been forced to work from home. Some people have been told to go, and of course they'll be called when to come back to work. It's still unfortunate. Some people's salary have been slashed. 60%, 7%, 50%, 40, 30. It's still very crazy. So let's thank God for the life we have. Let's thank God for the blessings we have. And from the entire crew right here, director, that's Brenda Kemei, and all the studio technical operators, I must say, keep safe, sanitize, wash your hands, and of course, I'm very sure in 3 to 4, maybe months, hopefully, we're back to our normal operations. Good night.